You're listening to the Jets Country Podcast, powered by Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Network. It's the Jets Country Podcast Hard Knocks Review Series. I'm Ralph Ventry, breaking down the season finale of Hard Knocks, Episode 5, Training Camp with the New York Jets. We run through every segment of the show, give you our opinions, our analysis, and some insight. It's myself and Amanda Shinn on the Jets Country Podcast next. Amanda, let me just say, I don't know exactly what that was, but it wasn't good. And it was really a big disappointment. It was, it just was kind of, the series just really fizzled out. Didn't really go out with a bang at all. I feel cheated almost as a viewer for a number of reasons. First off, the episode was only about 44 minutes when they have a 60-minute window to fill. So they cut it short. The episode was really only 40 minutes because the last 4 minutes of the finale were clips from prior episodes. So no new content. I just see that as lazy filmmaking. Just a poor job, job on the filmmaking side. And then you have the fact that not only did they just give us 40 minutes, but 20 of those minutes were focusing on a hallway, an empty hallway. I mean, what are we doing here? This was just, I mean, there were a few decent moments. There were a few moments that you can argue salvaged the episode. But I mean, this was a waste of my time, missed opportunities, and really a sad, terrible way to end what was a decent series. They were going along pretty good in my opinion, and then this thing came, and this was like you want to talk about The Sopranos with the ultimate series finale. We want to talk about HBO, which has had some tremendous series finales in its history. The Sopranos being one of them, and then of course 6 Feet Under. I mean, 6 Feet Under was genius. That was brilliance. You talk about filmmaking, that was brilliance. And then to have HBO's name on this dud, I mean, really, as you can, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm pretty disappointed. You know, I mean, give me my $15.99 back for this month of HBO Max, because that stunk. Anyway, you know, we'll go through the show. I'll give you a chance to speak. Yes, Amanda is here. I'll give her a chance to come back at me here, and we're going to break this thing down, and I'm going to tell you why. Well, I've already told you why I thought it was a disappointment, but we're going to go into detail here. We're going below the surface level, as we always do, and we'll go through the show segment by segment. We'll start with the opening, and this was disappointment right from the start. This boring walk through the hallway. I understand that they were trying to put us in a player's shoes, but it was way too long. It kind of missed the point. And even at the end of this segment, it was telling what Schreiber, the narrator, said. He said, and let me just bring up the notes here. Schreiber says, the metaphor is not perfect. Well, you know what, Liv? How about we just say that the metaphor was terrible? Okay, it was a swing and a miss with that hallway metaphor to start the show. And Amanda, finally, the floor is yours. What do you think of that opening? And also, if you want to hit me back on my critiques of episode 5.
No, I mean, I'm with you. And if I, as a viewer, I do feel gypped. I literally only downloaded HBO Max to watch Hard Knocks. So I do feel a little bit salty for that. There were moments where they did a good job, like tying things together and, like, creating an ending, which we'll go through. But and the hallway was one of them. I understood at the end, like, what the whole long walk for was about when they started putting all the images up on the wall. So that kind of wrapped up that story. But yeah, it was way too long. Then you had the filibustering over, like, the UFOs and stuff. So, like, there were a lot of segments within the big episode, the big scheme, that didn't warrant that amount of time, and then the ones that actually did, they didn't give that to. And we'll get to those moments. But yeah, like, I mean, and it is funny that Liv said that about the metaphors, because you had also came at Sala in previous episodes for his poor misuse of metaphors. And I just love how the one resurfaced, but I know we will get to that. So but I am with you. I do think there were really good moments, 100%, but it definitely left a lot to be desired.
All right, well, let's get into one of those good moments, which it comes in, I believe, the second segment of the show, and that's when we have Jason Brownlee and Xavier Gipson, two undrafted wide receivers, rookies, who make the 53-man roster. I have been aware of these two individuals since January in my work for the draft, in my draft prep. I knew them, well, I knew Xavier Gipson from his days at Stephen F. Austin. He was a star at the football championship subdivision level, FCS, formerly known as 1AA. So I knew these two guys, and I thought it was really a unique story, really a heck of a coincidence how they wound up together at the Jets, and now they make the roster. They noted it during the program, during the show, that it's so unusual for two undrafted players, rookies, to make the team at the same position. It's rare to have one undrafted player make the team. I'd say every team, all 32 teams on average, have maybe 1 to 3 undrafted rookies who make their 53-man roster. So basically there are maybe 45 of these guys, 50 of these guys around the league. And for the Jets to have two of them at the same position, really unique. And really cool, because they both seem like hardworking individuals and really humble gentlemen. And I had been calling for this throughout the whole series. Give me more of Brownlee and Gipson. I think they're going to make the team. They finally do. There was this big deal about the Jets not wanting to show players getting cut. Well, okay, that's fine. Well, then show us the other side. Show us that triumphant side. And they did that here with the Brownlee and Gipson. I want your take on this, but I'll lead you into it by saying the music that they played, like the instrumental that they played during this and in the open, I thought that it missed. It really didn't really have an effect, or I didn't feel an effect of the music. And maybe they could have went with something more mainstream, or maybe that was an instrumental of some mainstream song that I don't know, because I'm no Swifty like you are. But anyway, yeah, take us into what was with that music, and then what do you think about the whole Brownlee Gibson segment? What did you like most about that?
So the music I'll touch on first. It was like dramatic because they were trying to like set it up as if like they weren't going to make the team, but they had also prefaced like that this episode was to focus on the 53-man roster, so we knew we weren't getting anybody that didn't make it. So I did appreciate them pulling us into those meetings with the GM Joe Douglas and Sala, but it was funny, like because the coaches obviously and GM were setting it up for disappointment, and Gibson's like, why did you scare me like that? But it's interesting though because the Jets must have known pretty early that they were keeping both of them, hence why they gave kind of the like NFL Films the okay to go and do that segment on them last episode, because they wouldn't have done player spotlights ahead of time had they not been relevant for this episode. So I
No,
thought
that's a
that
good
was
catch right there, and you're 100% on target because I forgot what the actual language was, what the wording was, but on the sidelines in that Giants game in episode 4, on the sidelines, they were talking to Gibson like he was part of the 53, like he was part of the main receiver
right.
rotation. And I don't know if it was Salah mentioned, like something like, yeah, he's going to be around for a while or something like that. But they kind of gave it away last episode. And you're 100% right that, the fact that they must have known, hey, these guys they have the green light because, so profile them. But that's
Yeah.
definitely a good catch.
And that was early, like only 5 episodes. They're getting as much content as they can to create this storyline, but they knew early. So that is interesting. And then it was just kind of funny how they were like walking out. They were probably like so stoked, and Azani came out like, y'all just gonna walk out, so it was nice to see that whole embrace between the two of them and their coaches.
Yeah, they had that handshake too. If you notice, once Gibson came out of the meeting room and Brownlee was there, they showed that I
Yeah.
guess that's their signature handshake
And
together.
it was also cool to have them get Rogers give a soundbite on both of them. You know how they didn't get signing bonuses, but they came out with a plan and a purpose. And so, like I thought that was a nice little touch.
No, that was great insight from Rogers. There's no question about that, and it was appropriate because Rogers really helped put these two receivers on the radar, um, out to the general public, or just, if you weren't a draft Nick or you weren't a diehard, you wouldn't have known about these two guys. But Rogers made a point to commend both of them on the final day of OTAs, and then I believe he mentioned them again at different junctures during training camp. Salah has mentioned these guys before. They've made some great plays that have warranted being featured by the Jets on social media. So, yeah, they've definitely been a big part of Jets training camp here in 2023. All right, now I think we go into some meeting rooms, and then it's the
Well,
UFO deal.
Tanzel was let go, just to
Oh,
see him
yep,
come back
yep, yep.
later.
But we knew that
Yeah,
he was coming back on the practice squad.
yeah.
Um, so it really, it didn't hit that hard because you knew the guy was still
No,
going to have a job. But I mean, they,
right.
they were the producers. the filmmakers, they were trying really hard to pull at those heartstrings because they had the little
Yeah.
daughter on his chest.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh,
so
they just went for it. Yeah, 100%. And then Dalvin coming out, what I thought was funny when he was like, new threads, who dis? Like, he was pumped to suit up. And then Rogers even this was in a practice, telling him to slow down because of where Rogers wanted to place the ball. Like, he was like, I guess like his step was too quick. So he's like, slow down, I want to hit the ball right here. So I thought that was cool. But yes, then
yep. So
we
that's
go
the
into the
practice.
UFO.
This is the practice right after the meeting room sequence, and the meeting rooms. I think we only got Jeff Ulbrich, right, the defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
But the only comment I have here is I just don't understand Jeff Ulbrich when he's speaking to a room or speaking at a podium. He puts on this, this act, this like, it's like a different voice. It's preacher esque, but
Yeah,
it's
it
not
is a
how
little
he
creepy.
speaks normally. Like when he was sitting down in that interview, the one on one that they showed him in this past episode, like he was speaking normally, but then when he goes and addresses the room, it's like this, it, it almost it's a cross between a preacher and like some WWE wrestler, and it's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. I don't get it, but apparently it works for him, and I guess the guys respond to it. So anyway, we go out to practice. You mentioned the Dalvin part at practice, and then they bring down Steve Levy from Don Bosco Prep, former quarterback. He was a quarterback at Cal. Rogers quickly alluded to the fact that Levy changed positions. He actually moved to fullback to make way for Rogers. Levy, I actually know him personally. I haven't seen him in about 10 years, but I've worked with him before in the past. So it was cool to see him on the big screen there. But yeah, I knew about the UFO story, and that was actually documented in an LA Times article probably about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even a little longer. But it was cool to see Levy out there. It's cool to see Rogers still connected so closely with his Cal Bears family. But yeah, and the UFO story that was cool too. But it just was kind of drawn out, and it was way too long. It
Very.
was way too much. Like the time was so precious in this episode, and then they ended 16 minutes early, and then they spend 5 minutes on the UFO. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I love Steve Levy and I love the UFO story, but just
Right.
come on, why
Right.
5 minutes
Yeah.
on this thing here? Give us something
Totally.
else. Give us the quality that you just did, or that you were going to do with the Izzy Abanikanda, the family visit. Give us a few more minutes of that rather than
Right.
the UFO. So because I thought that Izzy Abanikanda family moment um, was something I was looking for, more of this quote unquote family time in the episode. I wanted to get a more intimate look at some of these players and see the human side. So I enjoyed this, and I thought that this was one of the moments that may have, or one of the segments that may have salvaged an otherwise highly disappointing episode. So we go right into Levy with the UFO, into the Abanikanda family household. What are your thoughts?
I just kept thinking of Anaconda forever. Like, how do you not make a Black Panther reference? I think if there are some injuries, because I don't know how much time or in what capacity he'll be getting the time. But if he takes off with it, like, that can have a whole, life of its own. But his family, like, very sweet. They went a lot into his background, which is exactly what you had said and you were calling for. And, like, yeah, I would have much rather that from more of, whether it's more of him or another player, because then they went and, like, touched upon a whole bunch of players all throughout New York City and whatever, but it was like quick snippets, like they could have gone way deeper into a lot of other things. So the whole UFO thing, like, and if it was already well documented, I mean, it was just like kind of, I guess, relevant because of all that's going on today. But yeah, so I did appreciate the Abanikanda and his family episode, or segment. It was that's what fans want. Like, they want to know their players better. And so yeah, that I would just kind of agree with you there.
All right, then I think we go to Broadway, right? You can take us to this one here. Or
So
no,
we
am I
go
missing
into
something?
they take a lot of B-roll of New York City, and then Alan Lazard is getting tatted by Snuffy.
Yes, there you go. How can I forget about Snuffy and the tat parlor? Yeah, we got the piercings with McDonald. Now it comes full circle. Lazard with the tat getting tatted up by your boy Snuffy. That's right. I didn't have that. I just kind of forgot about that. Gee, I wonder why. Another
I don't know
weird,
how you could. When I
unnecessary.
was watching it, I was like, "Oh, Ralph must be dying right now," because I couldn't. I was like, "All right, we have another name on the list. Like, I need to do a deep dive on all of these characters and
Yeah. What was the other
companies
dude's
that
name? What was the piercer's name? The piercing
oh,
technician, I
I'm gonna
guess.
have to do a
Could we
deep
call
dive.
that guy a technician?
I definitely have to do a deep dive. Oz Perlman, him, Al the Jeweler. I'm gonna go deep
is
after
is
this.
there like is there
Nothing.
is there some kind of code, like are these names, like, do they have a double entendre, like an underground meaning, some of these names, or like if you put them all together, do they spell something, like, is it, it's just, but it's yeah, definitely, these names did not lack in creativity,
No, that's
that's
for
for
sure.
sure.
I'm shocked we didn't get, like, their sneaker plugs, or like something that. But I guess tats and piercing, it kind of went together. But yeah, and then that went to into Garrett Wilson making his own pliable, Delvin Cook showing his new digs, Sauce signing Sauce at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, those were all, like I said, I didn't even have it written down because it was so
So
forgettable
quick.
and so quick and so forgettable. Like, what did you,
Yeah.
as a viewer, what are you supposed to draw from that? Like, what what do you get? What's the value of showing that? Like, we know Sauce makes public appearances
Right.
hawks his products. Like, maybe show an interaction that Sauce had at that
There.
product
Right.
promotional event, an interaction that shows us more of who Sauce is as a person, rather than just cutting to, yeah, like Garrett Wilson making a pliable. I mean, the only thing, come on, dude. I mean, just it just seemed like a lot of missed opportunities.
Yeah.
Um, you know, instead they're showing nonsense instead of actually, like, really good character development and insight that a docu series is supposed to unveil. Like, I really think that this was just a poor job. And listen, I'm not Scorsese, I'm not Hitchcock. I'll tell you, I did study film on a scholarly level, okay, and I um uh do call myself a film connoisseur. Okay, I'm not Siskel. I'm not Ebert.
I
I
was
think
just
one or
gonna
both of
say,
those
okay,
guys are
Siskel
dead
and Ebert.
anyway. So thankfully, I'm not Siskel or Ebert. No thumbs up right now for those guys. But yeah, no, like it's just I don't want to sound like a film snob or somebody who has made a movie before, but it's just it's just highly disappointing. It just seems lazy.
Yeah, it was
It
just to
seems like
fill
they didn't give
space.
enough effort. It's just like they took the Hard Knocks. They kind of took the Hard Knocks cookie cutter script that's been going on for the past 20 years, and they didn't add anything new or original to it. And it's disappointing. And I think that this is a microcosm of the disappointment. These scenes that you're talking about, these I'll call it a flash through, where they go through these four meaningless uh, shots on screen. It's just they could have done more with that time, or they could have done,
Yeah, for
instead of
sure.
showing us four altogether, just show us one, but show us some quality in there. Like I said, show Sauce interacting with a young fan, or you know show Dalvin's house. You want to show Dalvin's house? We'll show the boys coming over and hanging out at Dalvin's house. Don't just give us a quick in and out there, like, or hey, give us like a crib style tour of the house.
Right,
Like let's go in depth here.
right. Totally.
So
No, I'm with you. It was just like filler, but it was like quick filler space. Like it didn't really have much of a point other than just to show like what players were doing in and around New York City. Like it really didn't. It served no purpose. So I am with you there. But then it did bring us to the Broadway shows and or the Michael Jackson show with Conklin, Solomon Thomas, Tanzel Smart, C.J. Uzoma, John Franklin Myers, Zach Wilson, Randall Cobb. They were all there. Aaron
Nate
Rodgers.
Hackett, what do you think of my guy Nathaniel Hackett? He was getting into it.
He was getting into it. And the way that after the show, when he was like amazed at how he was moving, you could tell Hackett probably has a little bit of swag and some rhythm, because just the way he was like moving his head, like in amazement that the actor Elijah could perform like that, I was like, okay, Hackett. And then it was funny, like with I think, was it John Franklin Myers at the end where he was like, they were asking Elijah like how he does the moonwalk, the Michael Jackson actor. That was a good segment because like it
That
was
was
just, was
Solomon
it
Thomas
Uzoma?
was the one who was trying to do
Oh,
the
that was
moonwalk, which
Thomas.
I thought
Okay,
was a poor attempt by
very
Solomon.
poor time. He
I mean, come
hardly,
on, dude.
yeah.
He didn't even give it an out. That's a D for effort right there for Solomon Thomas.
Stick to the footwork on the field. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. I hope his footwork in the trenches is better than the moonwalk. But you mentioned John Franklin Myers. Um, I, I just got like a weird vibe from him during the show. Like he just seemed like it had to be his first Broadway experience, right? Because he
for
turned
sure.
before the show even started. He turned to, I don't know if he turned to Solomon Thomas or
He turned
whoever
to
was sitting
Tanzel.
behind him
It
and
was
asked him,
to
"Is MJ going to be singing, or the actors going to be singing?" Like, okay, yeah,
it was
MJ.
Tanzel
I got news
Smart.
for you. MJ hasn't been doing much singing since 2009. Okay, JFM. I mean, what do you
I
think,
think
man?
like
I love
the,
you. Another
right.
Stephen F. Austin, small school guy, JFM, SFA,
Well,
but
you know,
but but
he
but
was
but he
focusing on
lost
the
me on this
field.
one here.
He was focusing on the field. He wasn't focusing on his studies. But no, he, yeah. I mean, I think the proper question would have been, is this actor lip syncing or not? But yeah, no, that was really funny when I think Tanzel Smart, and Smart's like, oh, this is my third show, and then it just kind of segued from there. But yeah, no, and then so funny coming out of the Broadway show, Cobb having the epiphany that Garrett Wilson is MJ is who Garrett Wilson is. They are one and the same. His mannerisms, he's skinny, floppy, and like
Yeah, and now I can't unsee it. I didn't
I
see it
know.
before. I didn't see it initially until Cobb pointed it out, but the guy is onto something. I mean, he's got it's that flexibility, those dangling arms, the kind of the he's got it. He's got it
He
there.
does.
Like,
He does.
it
And he was right about Morstead and he's right about Garrett Wilson.
Cobb is definitely good. Maybe after his career, he could be like a body language interpreter or something. He's really good at identifying, these subtle movements by people. So no, but I agree with Cobb there. Definitely a good call with Garrett Wilson and the
And you know
MJ
what? Now,
parallel.
now what we need to see is when Garrett Wilson does score a touchdown, we need to see an MJ dance.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Now, he'd be a guy who I think could pull off the moonwalk. Maybe the
Right.
touchdown and the moonwalk. I don't know how many people would put two and two together. They would have had to watch Hard Knocks to understand his touchdown celebration. But yeah, I think he should go for it. Go for a moonwalk. He's going to score. He's going to score a handful of touchdowns, maybe more than a handful this year. So
I hope
hopefully
so.
he's
I
got something
drafted
good
him.
cooking.
I hope so. I definitely drafted him high.
No, I'm driving the Garrett Wilson fantasy bandwagon. There's no question about that. I think he is. He's definitely the elite receiver on the team, and I think he's on his way to the top five in the NFL. Um, but now I think we go to Sala again, the meeting room.
Yeah, we go
Um,
back into the meeting room.
Or is this with the
Um,
receivers? Maybe
it was
there was
the
meeting
receivers.
rooms with receivers, and then we had Salah firing it up again with his literary brilliance.
I thought of you.
His oratory, I should say, his oratory brilliance. So yeah, what do we have here? We had the receivers meeting room, and then Salah, right?
We had receivers, and he was kind of calling out Zave, like asking the rest of the group, why is he here? He has like give a factor, hunger, growth. Then we went to Ulbrich, and he was giving the defense calling them special, eclectic in talent and character. Then we went to Salah, and he made the Mount Everest metaphor, altitude, avalanches, all of the obstacles that making the team equivalent to
There we
climbing
go.
Mount
That
Everest.
instead of the crow and the eagle, we get Mount
But we
Everest
still
now.
got the
So
crow.
I
We
mean,
still got the crow.
and this guy, and then he's mentioned, 300 people died, and only 200 are missing in action. But it's like, come on! And now he's going to compare this to a football season where these guys are getting paid millions of dollars to play a child's game. Listen,
I
I know
can't.
there's pressure. I know it's grueling. It's a grueling schedule. I know you are going up against other grown men, and it's physically demanding. I get it. I understand the battle metaphor of football. But this was just a little too much for me. And maybe I'm being too hard on Coach Sala, but the Mount Everest metaphor and the guys climbing and it takes you 6.5 years and this and that. It's like you're going, dude, you're playing football, all right? You're not going to the moon here. You're not curing cancer. You're not climbing Everest, okay? Like, it just was a little bit of a reach. Again, like that metaphor with the crow and the eagle, it was a reach. And I don't know if it was for the cameras. I don't think it was. I think this would have been his speech had Hard Knocks not even been in the building. Had the Jets not been on Hard Knocks, I think this probably would have been his speech. I think he is genuine, but I just he misses me, I should say, with these metaphors because maybe the players take to them, but like I said, it doesn't hit home for me. But I'm not in that situation. But I did think it was a little strange. Like this guy's comparing this like death-defying climb up Everest to the season. Like, can we be a little less dramatic? Like, and I did like the part where he said, I don't know if it was in this segment or later on. It couldn't have been later on because the show was over in 15 minutes. But but I did like when he said, I don't want to be known as the coach whose guys just play hard. I want to put the beating down. I want to be doing the ass kicking, And I appreciated that, and I thought that was good. That's football talk. That's real. Just give me that. You don't have to go through the whole 18-minute metaphor about Mount Everest and then come at me with that punchline. Just give me the punchline, Robert,
Yeah, well, I mean, he kind of tried to like save himself by saying, all right, the climb is about to get harder with a ton of adversity. And he brought the crows back, saying they're going to come back pecking. And this is where I thought he had a complete missed opportunity, because he did say, I don't want to play hard. I want to F you up. Like, no one's saying we're playing hard anymore. They're hating. And he could have easily ended that segment with, if you ain't got no hitters, you ain't popping.
No, like, that would have been, that would have saved it. That would have definitely saved it, because that is a tremendous line, and he does deliver that one well. But yeah, he should have been saying that they hating, maybe he could have mixing in two metaphors with the crow, the eagle, and Mount Everest.
Exactly.
Maybe he could have mixed in two songs with the Shaw Millionaire song and the other one, and say, they see me rolling, they hating, but if you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping. That would have been something.
I'll take a ski.
Yeah, exactly. But so no, that I guess that was a missed opportunity there by Coach Saleh. The one other note I have about that speech is when he makes the statement that they are hating. They're not saying that we play hard anymore. Like he's implying that the Jets have already arrived, and I think the Jets look great on paper, and they should win 10 games at least this year. But the fact of the matter is, this is a 7-10 football team who finished in last place last year. And you know what? They talk about having an historical defense. Well, instead of talking about an historical defense, why don't they just try being number 1 in the league right now? Because the last time I checked, they were number 4 last year. And number 4 is not number 1. And you're not going to be historical by being number 4. So I think that the Jets have gone a little off the rails here. And I think that Saleh is allowing it, and especially when he's saying stuff like, implying that they have already arrived. The Jets are giving themselves way too much credit for winning the offseason. And listen, they did everything they needed to do during the offseason. The management brought in the players they needed to bring in. Those players appeared committed to the process. They were active. They were working hard. I get it. But none of it matters when they step on the field against Buffalo. And none of it matters unless they win at least 10 ball games this year. And I just think they need to pump the brakes a little bit. And it's a little too much like Rex Ryan. We won the offseason. I remember when Rex was in Buffalo, he was touted, we won the offseason. And they stunk. They were 8-8 the next year, or 7-9. He got fired. You know, winning the offseason is has not does not show up in the standings. So, obviously I'm referring to the comments that DJ Reed made the other day about the Jets being like the '85 Bears, or aspiring to be as good as the Legion of Boom, and those aspirations are all well and good. But don't talk like, if you want to talk like this internally, that's fine. But don't
Right.
talk like this externally until you actually have the results to back it up.
I agree
So
with you.
that's
Yeah,
where
they're
I got
definitely
that's where that Salah speech kind of, he lost me on the metaphor, and then he lost me on the fact that he's suggesting the team has already arrived. No, no, no. What he should have suggested, because what the situation is that the real metaphor is the table is set. The table's set, but the meal isn't done yet. The meal hasn't been cooked.
Or even better, you've boarded the jet. You've boarded the plane, right? You're all just boarded right now. Now is when you take off. It's almost as if they, are already in flight, and that is not the case, and I agree with you. Like, and the arrogance is like, you know, I get they're trying to stay motivated and, ripple effect, like just, get focused, but I kind of agree. There is some, you have to be humble, and as humble as your last record, your last, like preseason isn't going to show us much, right? So you're only as good as your last season. And yeah, sure, they had a great off season, but that's just like a piece, the smallest piece of it, like we've had, there's been teams that were you were not expecting to do well, that ended up bonding together and really taking their team far, versus a team that is stacked, and then you don't know what happens, injuries and all sorts of stuff. So it is kind of interesting to see them like kind of take that persona, but I hope it doesn't bite them. I hope that they can see through all of these, manifestations, really. But I'm with you. Yeah, they should have reeled it back a little bit for the cameras internally, by all means. And that's how I feel every organization should be. Whether you're 1 or 32, but yeah, that I kind of agree with you there.
And that takes us into the final segment of the show. I believe they go right from Salah's grand speech, his final speech, into the practice field, or onto the practice field, preparing for Buffalo, and then they splice in all the old clips from prior episodes. But when we go from the meeting room right out to the field, and you see the tackling dummies, and they put the Bills logo on them. I just think that's silly. I think it's Bush League. I mean, these guys are professionals. They know who they're playing. They don't need to see the Buffalo thing on the tackling dummy. I mean, that just smacks of an amateurism to me. It's kind of it's silly. It's silly, and maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine, but just
It's just symbolism, I think. Like like, which,
but
after the field, you see the
you,
symbolism in the
you
wall.
know what
But
they should have put on there then? Three-time division champs, because Buffalo's won the division 3 years in a row, or the fact that Buffalo has, uh, you know, 37 wins or whatever it is over the regular season in the last 3 years. Because the Jets want to talk about how they've arrived, but so if they've arrived, then where's Buffalo? I mean, Buffalo must be on the moon by now. And what about Miami? It's like
I
it
know.
it it just seems like the Jets are drinking a lot of their own Kool-Aid, and
Yeah.
maybe it's going to be fine. Maybe they're going to come out and smash Buffalo and make a statement, and say, hey, You know, there is a new sheriff in town. Aaron Rodgers is here. We're the real deal. Hey, Buffalo, it's coming through MetLife Stadium this year. You know,
Or jet
maybe
life.
they make that statement, but save the talking for Tuesday morning. You know,
Right.
instead of now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just
No,
think.
I mean, I
I
get
mean,
it.
they're
And like,
professionals. I get it. They're not. Maybe they're. But it just seems. I know that they're. You know, you can never get too high. You can never get too low. I just.
yeah.
I'm. The vibe is just a little too much, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, that particular segment was just to wrap up our relationship with Quinnen because we didn't get any of Quinnen this whole segment outside of that, and so I think it was just to like they were kind of focusing on all the guys they had highlighted throughout the series, and like that was Quinnen's like wrap up, okay, you know, like I think he said to his teammate, "You only love me because I get sacks," and then that was it. That's all we had of Quinnen in that episode, and which I was devastated because he's hilarious and he, you know, I would have rathered more Quinnen than the UFO or more Quinnen than the walk down the hallway. You know, like they really missed on that. But yeah, and then it goes into Aaron's sound bites over, you know, like finish the wall, write a story through images. You know, I think the words were effort, technique, and violence, which I thought was wild. But you know, they're documenting preseason 1 through what they hope to be February, which is even wild that they even came out and said that. And but I thought that was okay. Now you're tying us back into the hallway. You kind of wrapped that story up, but it was all of A-Rod's sound bites that played. Welcome to Jet Life Stadium. His speech where he's like, you know, the days go really quickly, like savor each moment. All of that stuff. And then yeah, so
But no new content. Just
no,
again,
no, 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 no.
laziness.
Yeah,
They like if they wanted to do that in the last 4 minutes of a 60-minute episode, that's fine. But they did that in the last 4 minutes of a 44-minute episode. Like they
right,
already gypped us to begin
right.
with, and now they're giving us these recycled sound bites that I've heard a
And
thousand times, that I've
right.
heard on every Hard Knocks promo. You know, that I've heard Rodgers say the same thing during his media availabilities. I mean, it
We had
really,
no
swing and a miss,
cafeteria
HBO. Swing and a miss.
no cafeteria talks, no Vito Contento. Like
Where is Vito? I
where?
wrote that on
Please.
it. Where's Vito? Is he in the witness protection program? What happened? I go to si.com/NFL/Jets. I wrote it up. The 3 things I wanted to see in the finale. I wanted to know where's Vito, and I said I had a feeling they weren't going to come back to the Vito story. Whether he's sleeping with the fishes, we'll never find out. And I knew they weren't going to come back to this story. I had a feeling, and I said, are the HBO producers, are they going to do to us what David Chase did to us in The Sopranos with Slava's Russian and the Pine Barrens episodes? He disappears. We never see him again. And everybody, all the Sopranos, that was in season 3. For the next 5 years, all the Sopranos fans wanted to know what happened to the Russian. What happened to the Russian? You know, and they never showed it. It's like the Russian never existed. Well, what happened to Vito? I mean, this guy, he's got a family probably. He's got a wife. He's got kids. He's a great equipment manager. Why? Why are they
All
doing
he
this to him?
wanted.
Is it because his name ends in a vowel? Is it because it's Vito Contento that you're not going to show him? Like, is there
He
some,
just wanted, he
like,
just
what's
wanted
going
his,
on?
yeah, he just wanted his 15 minutes of fame. And it ended 16 minutes early. What better content could we have asked for?
No, Vito. Yeah, so
You
they did it to
opened
him twice.
You
They
opened
did Vito.
episode one with him. You opened episode one with him. You could have finale'd in the perfect way to just really tie it all in together. And that is where they missed.
No,
And like,
he was one
and
of the
you
first
know what,
people we
Vito?
met in
Even
the
though they didn't,
series.
even though Vito, even though they didn't give you airtime, we come on the Jets Country podcast. We would love to talk to you about this. I just think that this was a completely, like, the worst missed opportunity of all.
I have to agree. I mean, I'm aggravated. I'm
Yeah,
legitimately aggravated that they did Vito dirty. Like
I know.
Rogers, he's
Twice.
one of the first characters we meet in the whole series, and then we never
Yep.
see him again. And Rogers told you that they did him dirty in 2010, and he got no love in 2010. And now what do they do? 13 years later, Vito, it's like it's like you don't even exist, man. You didn't. Guys working hard. He's fixing helmets. He's probably the guy who was out there at 5 in the morning slapping those Buffalo Bill stickers on the tackling dummies. And you can't give this guy any airtime. It's just highly disappointing.
Very
Just
disappointing.
another disappointing element of a disappointing finale. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. That one hurt. I really was holding on to hope that we would get more.
So no Vito, no Quinnen Williams in this episode. And Quinnen Williams, I know you're a big fan, but legitimately, like, two of the maybe five funniest moments of the series were Quinnen Williams. There was an interaction between him and Hackett gave him the one finger salute. I thought that was hilarious. And then you had him, what was it, in Carolina, where he had the 11s, he's counting his sacks, and Rogers is getting into it. I mean, it was good. It was good stuff, and I don't know why they wouldn't show you more of a good thing, like
Right.
that was working. That was good television.
Right.
That was what the viewers wanted to see. There was value there. But instead, you show us some guy putting fatheads on a wall in a hallway for 15 minutes. I mean,
I'm
this
with
is a
you.
head scratcher. This one is a head scratcher.
No, I'm definitely with you. And
All right,
I wish
so
there was, like, I wish they did a 9 because, there's so much more I feel like we could have gotten out of this, but it is kind of depressing it's over.
no, and it was okay. It was better than okay for a
Yeah.
little while there, and then they just crash landed, no pun intended, with this episode.
All gas,
Um,
no brakes.
all gas, no brakes, man. But you know what? You know what? Um, the HBO execs right now, they're probably listening to the Jets Country podcast. They're probably sitting there in their office, and they probably don't like me too much. But you know what? They're probably smiling, and they're probably saying, "If you ain't got no haters, you ain't popping." I mean, so hey, I mean, I'm hating. There's no doubt about that. Um, but yeah, I guess you could say they're popping. Hard Knocks, another season in the books. Um, People said it's kind of getting stale. I understand that argument. Although for the true NFL diehard, um, the true NFL diehard has an insatiable appetite for all things football, and they will always tune into Hard Knocks, no matter how stale it gets. So HBO may not do the mega ratings anymore, but there will always be, um, I don't know if desire is the right word, but there'll always be a market for a show like this. There's no question about that. Even if it's not as good as it used to be, or, there are there have been some disappointing moments, this summer. That's for sure. But I guess they did what they could. There were the reports that the Jets, weren't exactly playing nice in the sandbox with the NFL Films folks, early on.
I
But
could see that. And
you
it's hard
know,
it's hard to do a 5 episode series. Like that's very difficult.
yeah, and
You can't
I guess
tell a real story, you know.
I guess at the end of the day, though, to me, their 5 episodes is not nearly enough to show the whole story and tell the whole
Right.
story. But the way they ended by ending 16 minutes short, I'm
Right.
under the impression that they ran out of content.
They
Like,
did. They
did they
were
just
running
stop? Did they
B-roll
just
at the
turn off the
end.
cameras at one point? Like,
No, they they were repurposing content and running B-roll and yeah. No, they clearly ran into a situation where they were trying to make up as much time as they could and still ended 16 minutes early.
all right, well, it's Ralph Ventry and Amanda Shinn on the Jets Country podcast. It was our Hard Knocks review series. I'm speaking for myself, but I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun talking about the production value, the character development, talking football, um, you know, talking Broadway shows. We discussed a lot over the past 5 weeks. It was a great run. As far as Amanda, she'll be back on the Jets Country podcast from time to time. We'll have to get her back in the chair to recap some Jets wins, Jets losses, Jets games. Maybe we'll bring her in from time to time just to get her take on what's happening with Gang Green. But it's been a fun summer. It's
It's been a
over. It's
pleasure.
week one. It's Buffalo. It's New York. It's September 11th. It's Monday Night Football. Um, it should be a really exciting season, and then we kind of whet our appetite with Hard Knocks. Amanda, I'll let you close us out. Just your final reflections on episode 5, your final reflections on the series as a whole, and maybe a little prediction for the Jets in 2023.
So 5, I think it was good. It had good parts, but overall a little bit disappointing with the timing. Overall, the series, I did think it was very entertaining. Like I've said, it was thoughtful, it was dramatic, it was funny. You know, I fell in love with players that I didn't previously really know much about. So I think that's the whole point, and coaches. Um, and bringing up coaches, the whole Sean Payton and Hackett thing. What week is that? I think week 5 that they played. That is going to be a huge game. They could have totally focused a little bit more on that. And they didn't, but it's going to get heated, and I do think that's going to be a big game in the media and just amongst the players. They're going to come out fighting for Hackett and just pride. So I think overall it was done very, very well. I will be upset to not be breaking this down with you any longer, Ralph, but I do appreciate you bringing me on. It's definitely been fun.
No, without a doubt, and like I said, we'll keep you in the fold here, in some capacity, as we move forward. And probably to talk about this early season Jets schedule, because you mentioned the Denver game, which has added significance now with Sean Payton's comments. You have the Eagles in week 6 maybe. I think you have the Chiefs in week 4. It goes Buffalo, Dallas, New England, Chiefs. and then I think we go Denver, Eagles. So, I mean, these are 6 tough opponents, and we'll see where the Jets are after that shakes out. I'm sure there'll be a lot to talk about after that season opening stretch. So it'll be great to get you back in the in the chair here in the Jets Country podcast virtual studio. Um, but with that said, Amanda, thank you for your time, for your insight, and for your analysis as the Jets Country podcast Hard Knocks review series is now complete. Thanks for listening, and check back with us on the Jets Country podcast.